Bases dropped on the midweek here at Soccer Down Here. Am I allowed to say that?
I think you claimed eminent domain at this point, so no one can fight you on this.
Okay, so bases dropped. It's a midweek here at Soccer Down Here, Wall Pass Wednesday, and we do have some Wall Pass Wednesday in thoughts. One on Atlanta United and one on expansion. We'll get into that in just a little bit. We've got the midweek whip around, patent pending, trademark coming, hopefully, when it comes to the 4 matches that are tonight. And we've got news to talk about in Major League Soccer. And I wanted to talk about how we ended Tuesday's show with Jarrett also, with what we talked about with the NWSL on the Tuesday program and crypto in general. But first and foremost here on Wall Pass Wednesday, it's the opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And you can also follow along at Kickoff Coffee CO on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Thanks to everyone who has invested in Kickoff Coffee and what they are doing. And a lot of folks, the boss is digging the dark roast, and so that's a good stuff going forward. But if you use the code Soccer Down Here 15% off your purchase, and remember the 10% of the proceeds head toward youth development. And kind of a bit of a sidebar here. Speaking of youth development, Jared, as I am in Warner Robins, Georgia here for Central Swing before next week. It's the Southern Swing. Not putting quite as many miles on, but visiting just as many coaches in a very short period of time. You want to talk youth development, Jared? Here in the establishment that I am staying in as kind of the hub of operations here, there is a certain amount of baseball that is being played here by young individuals who are developing their games here in Warner Robins. And I think that it is the hub for the regional tournament before everyone is attempting to head toward Williamsport. And they've taken over this establishment. I will tell you that right now. They have taken over this establishment that we are in here doing Wall Pass Wednesday and Tuesday Thoughts. They have taken this place over. Everywhere you turn, there are folks between the ages of is it 11 and 12? Is that Little League? Is that 11 and 12? Is that Little League?
It depends on how you're playing. Like, so I can tell. So I'll explain this. I didn't play Little League Dizzy Dean. I played Pony Ball. And you age up like a horse, literally, because it started with T-ball, then Pinto, then Mustang, then Bronco, then Pony, then high school.
Got it.
So it depends on what organization your park belongs to.
Well, the folks that are heading toward Williamsport, I think the regional tournament is here for the Southeast. It is here in this city, and everywhere I turn, there are youngsters who are getting ready to play in the tournament. So I'm getting to sample Little League baseball in its purest form here at the establishment where we're staying and where my coverage is anchored. So it's a rather unique element in all of this, where you kind of get to see things at the ground level. And everywhere I turn, I think all of the teams, short of obviously the home team, so I think all 7 teams are here in this hotel, and they are on the floor above me, and they are on the floor below me. And
does it sound like a herd of elephants?
Yes, it does. It absolutely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you, having been a kid who played baseball and played like youth sports, like you put a bunch of kids in a hotel and you just let them loose, because there's just something about that is, it's fun, it's wild, it's crazy, it's chaotic. It just happens.
Yes.
I don't really have another explanation for it.
No. So that's where we are. So we are here in Warner Robins, Georgia. Half of us are, and so Office HD has one more day here in Warner Robins before we head back to Atlanta as we continue to go forward. But what I wanted to do for opening kickoff is talk about yet another injury for Atlanta United, and it was announced.
It's the like I said, it's the GIF of Fry from Futurama where he's hammering the sign up in the Stone Age of 0 days since an accident. Mm-hmm. He's trying to put the one up and he misses and keeps hammering his hand into it. It's that.
Yes. So that's where we are. George Campbell out, adductor injury, and I think this is the second time this year it's been the adductor. True, because wasn't that the injury that happened?
I don't remember if it was his adductor or not. It's a weird thing though, man. Your adductor's down there around your hip. It's kind of weird. It's gonna hurt. It's hard to. It's one of those things. I think it's hard to rest. My stepdad always told me about the time he did his Achilles and said how awful it was because you don't realize how much you use your Achilles until it's hurting.
Yes. So George Campbell once again injured for the second time this season, and it's frustrating on 38,000 different levels when you think that there's some continuity there at the back. And what we've seen from George specifically is his continued growth at the back in the position that he's been in at center back, and the fearless nature that he has integrated himself into the offensive attack and not just how he's been defensively. So, it's the promise of, once again, another individual who's in his early 20s, and that youth that's part of the development here for Atlanta United. And once again, you're going to have another individual step up and be there in George Campbell's stead again this time. And I think this is the 19th injury involving 36 players this year. And I'm counting multiple injuries for certain players. So here's, it's the 19th injury, I think, this season that will have cost a substantive time for players for Atlanta United. And I know that in looking at the timelines this morning and looking at, timelines yesterday as it was being announced, I think that you could just sense, like you were mentioning with the Futurama gift, that folks, that you just had this collective rolling of eyes, like, Schleprock, from the Flintstones, and you're wondering what's going to happen next. You wonder, you're hoping against hope that it doesn't happen again, but just because it doesn't surprise folks seemingly anymore that you're continuing to have these kinds of injuries with the continuing development of these players, and you're sitting there, it's like, okay, here's continuity. He's doing really well. Yes, he's making those mistakes of those young professional players and what they make, but now once again, Atlanta United at the back with Gonzalo Pineda is going to have to try to figure out what to do at the back as you head into this stretch run and a lot of games in not a lot of space in August.
Yeah, and this is why, I think it's you had a point in time a couple months ago where it felt like they got plenty of time to be okay. They still technically have time to be okay. If they win a couple games in a row, you'd feel a lot better about things. But it's not as clean as it was. Like, that scenario has a lot more pitfalls in it because, you're 2 points out of a playoff spot, I think, or out of or 4 points out. But you have a lot of bodies between you and that spot, and you're going to be looking for other teams to be making mistakes while you're trying to be perfect. That's the thing that I was always nervous about with this situation was anytime you're behind the 8 ball, you're relying on others to make mistakes. That's not where you want to be. Because you're going to have to play well, and you're going to have to rely on others to not play well. No one wants to live that life. It's a stressful life.
Yes. Right now, currently in the Eastern Conference, heading into the midweek, Orlando City, and this is the fun part in all of this, and I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Orlando City right now, having lost 2 in a row, they're at 30 points. They're in 5th. Gap from 5th to Atlanta United is 5 points. Gap from playoffs to Atlanta United is 4 points. Orlando, Columbus at 30, FC Cincinnati at 29. Now that below the playoff bar, Chicago, New England 27, Charlotte 26, Inter Miami 26 with 1 less win, Atlanta United at 25. And that's where you are right now. And you're having to do this and figure out, all right, how do we address the situation at the back? Is it some combination of Alex DeJohn, who has come in and given you quality minutes? Is it bringing up Noah Cobb, who has shown that he has had zero fear in his appearance in the AmFam Cup against Pachuco on the right-hand side with Aiden McFadden? All of these things now are questions that you didn't want to try to find the answers to. Now you're going to have to find the answers to them, but you've got a struggling Seattle team coming to town who is playing on Tuesday night, then having to turn around and have to play first match Saturday afternoon. So it's an opportunity for Atlanta to gain some points at home and get the win at home against a struggling Seattle team, but you're having to figure it out once again with a hole at the back that you've got to fill. And it's like, all right, it's like, okay, you spring a leak, you put your hand over there, you spring another leak, you put your hand over here. It's like playing Twister, and trying to figure out how to stop a leak. And it's not an enviable position right now for Gonzalo Pineda and the coaching staff with the 19th injury this season.
No, it's not enviable. It sucks. I hate it for George because I thought George has been kind of up and down this year. He's had some really good games. He's had some games where he hasn't been as good. It's part of growing up, and it's part of, as I've talked about, I don't know how many times now, it's a part of playing the kids. Everyone wants to play the kids until the kids start making mistakes. And then people don't want to play the kids as much. Now, some people still do. But again, when you play the kids, weird things happen. Mistakes are going to happen. And we'll see, we'll see what he does in terms of being healthy. Because I don't know, I guess theoretically you could go out of this and could play 4 at the back.
Yeah.
Could play 3 at the back. If you play 4 at the back, though, that's going to get really interesting for me, because that means if you go back to a 4 at the back kind of thing, what you end up with is a situation potentially where you get another attacker on the field, because you've taken an attacker off the field to be in this situation to begin with when you have 3 at the back.
Yeah.
Do you go back to that?
And I think that, that's obviously one of the things that's on the board going forward. First step is going to be this match against Seattle coming up on the weekend. So that's your opening kickoff. It's not the kind of kickoff that we want to give you, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Kickoff Coffee CO on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And we'll obviously keep an eye on George Campbell out for a substantive period of time. And we'll see what the recovery process is and how Atlanta United addresses the issue at the back, because of yet another injury involving Atlanta United. Kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. Get 15% off your purchase. And at the same time, 10% of the proceeds from everything at Kickoff Coffee is funneled back into youth development. Very, very cool stuff that our friends at Kickoff Coffee are doing. So that's your opening kickoff. Not a very fun opening kickoff, but once again, something that we had to, put in the hopper this morning. And one of the questions, and since we're talking Atlanta United, there have been a couple of folks who've brought in some questions here on Wall Pass Wednesday. And I want to get into the first question on Wall Pass that was brought in that is Atlanta United based. And the question comes from Chris Croft. And Jarrett, the question is there an issue with our deep-lying midfielders bringing the ball up the pitch? It seems to me that the attackers are dropping deep frequently to receive the ball. Shouldn't they bring the ball up higher to put attackers in a more advanced position? So that's the question from Chris Croft this morning.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's you're trying to figure out, how your guys want to play, because midfielders are different. Midfielders do different things. Different guys play different ways. So we just have to see, how they're going to balance it out, how they're going to operate. Do you feel like you might need to make changes into next year?
Yeah, well,
possibly.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that, one of the reasons I mentioned George Campbell is that what you're seeing from Santi Sosa at the 6, or whoever is playing that defensive midfielder position, Amar Sejdic at times, if he's paired with Mateus Usechu, or George Campbell on the back line at center back, you're seeing them take advantage of space and opportunity. So, you have all of that firepower helping you back on defense, which is something that Gonzalo Pineda wanted to have, with that firepower to help out defensively. And so, I mean, it might jumble what you're looking at, because you're seeing offensive players helping back defensively, and you're seeing in transition moments, you're seeing guys like George Campbell jumping into the fray and really charging up the channel. And so, I think that sometimes when you have an Amar Sejdic, who we've seen do very, very well in passing situations and drop dimes on folks, given the chance from a deeper midfield position. I think that a lot of those times, those attackers that you're looking at, they're probably helping out defensively, and it might be appearing like they're back further than you may be used to. The construct that, okay, your attackers are the guys that are going to be hanging out towards center line and center circle and not necessarily helping out as defensively as we've seen from Luis Araujo, from Joseph, from Ronaldo Cisneros, from Thiago Almada, from all that firepower. The firepower is there to help you at the back off defensively. And it just so happens at times in transitions, you have those deep playing midfielders and your center backs working their way in on those channels to help make the space. And then if George Campbell or whomever gets that run and it hits a stopping point where he just passes it off to the wing or into the center channel, then you'll see George Campbell or whoever that is, that individual retreats and gets back to a natural position. So I think that it might be something that's visual that we're looking at in transition moments, but I think that we see those players bringing the ball up closer to where we would imagine attacking happens. So I think that
I think there's a give and go with it too, because there's an unspoken chemistry. Because I can tell you, for instance, we saw this with the twos a lot. Yes. And the reason I bring them up is because they had a certain level of continuity for a while, something the first team has really lacked in the midfield. But you saw moments, especially last year when it's Chris Allen and Will Riley playing behind Robbie Mertz. Those two understood when somebody can carry and somebody can sit, and they knew when to go, when to stay. We've seen it from defenders at times. You've seen George Campbell make those runs to carry the ball into the attack, and Frank de Boer always called it, I think he referred to it as provoking. You're provoking that defense when you have someone from the back line stepping in like that. But yeah, it does take a certain, you would, I think, love to see more of your midfielders being those guys who can carry the ball in and cause problems with it. It's just, I think it's easier said than done. And what I'm very curious about, I don't know the answer to this, is some of this a matter of this is how Atlanta's operating right now because they had been leaking goals.
Yeah.
And you were trying to be safe about things.
And obviously, we've got a handful of games here where we can kind of see if this turns into part of the construct that we've been talking about here. But yeah, Chris, just I guess just keep an eye on things, and it might even be where you're having to look at individual possessions and sit there and say, okay, in this possession, we saw a center back come forward, and we saw, the striker or your forward work his way back. Your attacking midfielder, they were behind at the beginning of a play, but then once the play calms down, then positions switch, and you see what would be a normal order of things. And so I think that it honestly comes down to a case-by-case basis when you're looking at something like that, when it comes to positioning of players and attack and passing and all that kind of stuff. And before we go today, Jarrett, on the wall pass, I do want to catch up with you about the twos. We haven't had the chance to catch up with them and get your thoughts about what happened after the 1-1 draw with Las Vegas, which really, frankly, should have been at the very least a 2-0 win, if not a 2-1 win. And it was something that we kind of got into. I got into it when we were talking about it on the weekend, but I wanted to get your thoughts because we really haven't had your thoughts this week as we've been talking about Atlanta United too. One of the other big pieces of news comes out of Chicago, and it has to do with the transfer of Gaga Slonina to Chelsea. And obviously he was immediately loaned back to Chicago to finish the season. But as it looks, Slonina in January will head to Chelsea, and it looks like the price tag was somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million, and the Fire are going to keep a percentage of the sell-on fee. So once again, you're seeing young talent in Major League Soccer being exposed on the national scale and the international scale now. Gaga Slonina, Jarrett, to Chelsea. Cool move for Major League Soccer for a young talent between the sticks.
Yeah, does he get to play though?
I doubt it.
Well, then that's a terrible move.
Exactly.
Unless he's going to get loaned out and go play somewhere.
Right.
Like, it's great. Okay, great. You. This isn't FIFA. Oh, you got your name linked to Chelsea. Great. Are you going to play? You are? Great. Then it is a great move. oh, you're going to be riding the bench and you're probably going to get loaned out to, this, that, and the other everywhere else. I hope it works for you. I hope it ends up being a good loan where you can continue to grow and maybe take that job one day. But just taking that transfer to the big club just because it's the big club, or just because you think, okay, this is what I need to do right now, is oftentimes kind of a weird move. See Bello George.
Uh-huh.
Because the Armenia Bielefeld thing ain't work. I don't know if y'all have kept up with that out there in the world. The Armenia Bielefeld thing ain't exactly working for George right now.
No.
That's been a rough go for him.
Also on the board, and that's the big thing. It's like, we talk about Matt Turner. It's fantastic that Matt Turner ended up at Arsenal. Great.
Love it.
Great idea. But you're not playing in front of Aaron Ramsdale unless you earn it. There's a reason Bernd Leno wanted to leave town and end up
He's not going to play
with an £8 million move to Fulham. Bernd Leno was not going to play behind Aaron Ramsdale.
I hope Gagliardini plays, or I hope he gets loaned somewhere where he can play. Don't take the damn move just because it's a big club. It might not be the right club at that point in your career. He's still a kid, and it might involve him getting loaned out somewhere and playing for a couple of years because, again, he's still so young.
Mm-hmm.
And goalkeepers, the way they age, he's got just an obscene amount of time ahead of him in his life.
And you're looking at the opportunity for Matt Turner not to play. I don't think he's going to play. He's going to be the cup keeper. There's a reason Zach Steffen went to Middlesbrough. There's a reason.
Yeah, Matt Turner's going to fumble his way out of possibly starting for a World Cup because he's not going to be playing at Arsenal.
Nope.
I love that these teams are looking at American players. That's great. But if they're not playing, it does you the amount of good it does you is precisely dick.
Yep. And that's probably one of the best words to use to explain it. So great financial move for Chicago, and with sell-on fee, $15 million, fantastic. That's the report.
I think it could be a great move for him down the road.
Yeah,
as he continues to get playing time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if he gets loaned somewhere, he's going to be in some high competition. He's going to see high competition. Good on him. Maybe Chicago will take developing their youth more seriously now instead of watching them walk out the door. Because gentle reminder, as I know I've seen the comment a lot today, that Chicago and their youth system. May I remind you, Atlanta's left back was a part of Chicago's youth system, and he chose to go to college and try and go to Celtic without a permit before he took a homegrown deal with Chicago. I'm glad Chicago's getting better at this, but Chicago ain't exactly Philadelphia or Dallas when it comes to developing youth. Good on them for starting to take it seriously, but let's not pretend like they've been doing this for 10 years.
Yeah, no, that is not correct. When folks want to leave a system because really there is no development system and they end up coming up with those kind of decisions, then yeah, no, the idea that for some couple of years worth of time there's been some development there, that's not correct. So that is not a correct assessment.
Like I said, hopefully they take it more seriously going forward. Hopefully they're able to reinvest all that money and it'll be awesome for them.
Yes.
I hope it keeps happening because rising tide lifts all boats.
And that's what we are for, and we have always been
Yep.
for that. But you've got to get but once again, when someone says something, don't take it at face value. Seriously, don't take anything at face value. Do your own research when you see something like that. If something raises an eyebrow, if something raises the hair on the back of your neck, if something gives you,
if your spider sense starts tingling, it's probably a car being thrown at you by Doc Ock.
Correct. So those kinds of things. Just
Alfred Molina remains the best villain in a superhero movie. At me. We can talk about it.
Yeah, and when you have like 9,000 different heroes and villains in one movie, there are no small parts. Only actors who don't know how to take advantage of what is written for them, and so that's how I view it anyway. When it comes to a situation, when it comes to a Doc Ock, when you're looking at all of this stuff, it's fantastic to see Zach Steffen, fantastic to see all these keepers working their way, but they got to play. They've got to play. Bottom line, end of story. They got to play. Interesting note from our friends out at MLS Soccer. Galaxy are in talks to sign midfielder Ricky Puig from Barcelona, according to Fabrizio Romano.
Good. Do it. Come on, do it.
I mean,
he's right there. Do it.
Considered one of the top prospects in La Masia. Hasn't been able to get a first-team role. Doesn't appear to be in Xavi's plans. So now LA is reportedly optimistic. And remember, secondary transfer window closes on Thursday. So we will have a lot to talk about. I don't know if it's going to be as crazy as the MLB deadline on Thursday, but
nothing will be.
It'll have its own merits.
That was bonkers.
Yeah, it'll have its own merits, and we'll talk about the secondary window as everyone's racing to fill out their rosters for the push on August the 4th. According to Fabrizio Romano, negotiations ongoing. Parties optimistic as Barcelona is prepared to approve the deal. Final details of the player's contract are being discussed. Barcelona won a guaranteed sell-on clause included in the deal. 2 goals, 3 assists, 57 appearances for Barca across all competitions. Spain Youth International debuted in 2018. So Puig comes to Los Angeles. He would join Victor Vasquez as a Barca product in the Galaxy midfield. LAFC midfielder Ilie plus Uri Rosell from Sporting also came through that academy system before working their way to MLS. Puig would enter a Galaxy midfield with Gaston Brugman, who came over from Parma, Mark Delgado from Toronto FC, and Ryan Raveloson. So it could be very interesting if Ricky Puig makes his way to Los Angeles and hangs out with the Galaxy. That one's definitely one that we got to keep an eye on as we continue to push through Thursday. So as we get into Major League Soccer, let me get into the other topic really quickly that was brought in by Tafka on our wall pass, and it has to do with expansion. And, it's stuff that we've talked about to a certain degree. It's like, okay, how many teams? How do we lock it down? What does it look like? So let me get into Tafka's ideas when it came to expansion and where Vegas stands specifically. And that's what we do here on Wall Pass Wednesday. Anything on your mind, you can drop in. So Tafka, and this goes to scheduling and on expansion. So expand to 32, yes. Conduct regular season exclusively in conference play. I could dig that and then you get crossovers. But it's the same.
Supporter Shield doesn't mean jack squat anymore, just so we're clear.
Yeah. So, you're sitting there.
Which sucks.
Yeah. And so you would end up with 16 on each side. So 15, you play them twice. That's 30. You probably end up with, you're going to have crossovers in there somewhere. So 30-match regular season. Now, here's where Tafka goes after that. Seed the teams 1 through 32 after the first 30 matches. Divide the final standings of both conferences into 4 tiers. Draw 1 team from each tier, and you put those in 8 groups, and you have your World Cup-style 32-club tournament. Higher seed tiers, and you go 1 through 32, 2 to 31. You get a group stage. You get 3 more matches. Rewards teams with 1 or 3 more home matches if you're successful in that. So Tafka's turning this into an event after the first 30 matches. No clubs out of it by September. You still have that chance to do all of your knockouts, especially if you're a high seed. Group stage encourages cross-market viewership, and you don't get any buy rounds. So what Tafka, if I'm understanding it correctly, you play everybody internally in your conference. That puts you to 30. Then after 30, everybody gets reseeded, obviously with tiebreakers, and then you go from there. You go into group stages. Then out of group stage, you get at least 3 more. Then you go into knockouts. But the only thing is,
we're like blending South America and the Scottish split here, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, so that's what Tafka had in mind. I know that I'm a fuddy-duddy, and I get it, and I know that I will always be a fuddy-duddy. But the biggest thing for me is that whole idea of uniformity of the number of games that you play. And so I'm used to having this idea of you're going to play 38, you're going to play 34 games, you're going to play 36 games, you're going to do whatever. But Tafka wants to trim the regular season to 30 and then throw folks into the pile. And so, for me, then how do you gauge, if everybody doesn't play past 33 matches, or 34 matches? Is that just a new window and then everything else is a bonus? So loop back in. Let us know what you think. But Jarrett is all for your chaos after match 30 as you head toward a champion, and then you'd have a 32 knock off a 1. Something.
Yeah, I don't have to explain myself here. I watch Scotland. I watch literally. I literally watch the split every year. You're not gonna scare me off if that's your fear.
Yeah. So I mean that's. I'm looking forward to 32, and I know that folks are looking at Las Vegas at being 32. But then 30 games, I'm cool with that. If you get 32, I could see it trimmed to 30 or something like that. If you go to 32 teams and you stay, and then you have extra rounds of playoffs, things like that. I get that. That would be fine. But then you advance it into group stages, and then not everybody's playing the same number of games by the time you're done. If you don't get out of group stages, you could be playing 33 games. You could be playing 36. If you play twice, then you have more.
And that does creep up, because then you factor in Open Cup, you factor in what is now the new Nations Cup with Scotland, with Mexico. You are going to be really like pushing it up here on a lot of games if you do that. To be fair.
And so that's Jarrett digs your playoff system, Taka. That's the bottom line, because he's used to this kind of chaos where you have different
part of my life.
Then you have relegation ideas, you have halves, you're split in halves, and then it's like, okay, those of you in the top half you can play, and you could be and it goes to the whole supporter shield thing where you could be the top team, but then you get knocked out by the 5, and then you're out the door. But yes, Tafka with his ideas being put to the fore. Like I said, Jarrett digs it. I'm a fuddy-duddy. I like even numbers. And so if there's a way to make things even numbers with 32 teams, I'm all for it. I know that we get to 30 and then things get all goofy and crazy, and they could possibly do that. But that's what Wall Pass Wednesday is all about, making sure that anything on your mind comes to the table, and that's what it's all about.
So you can discuss it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the one thing that I've always, I always say when I'm doing shows, and you say it too when you're doing your shows, but, that's what we're here for. We're here for, discussion, discourse, going back and forth with ideas, because having a wide open discourse presents us to things we may not have thought about when it comes to particular situations and contexts and constructs. And so that's what Wall Pass Wednesday is about. That's what the whole week is about, really. Jarrett, did you see where the 2030 World Cup bid in South America, 4 countries are stepping to the fore, and they want to do it on the 100th anniversary of the World Cup in 2030. 4 countries want to do it in South America now.
I mean, I like that. I think you have to take it home for 2030, 100th anniversary. You bring it home, and I think breaking it out among countries is going to be one of the ways you do things going forward, because it's cost prohibitive, man. Like, and I want to see if Olympics will do this too at some point, as the Olympics have really kind of started to wane a bit in terms of the push you get. Like, has there been as much hullabaloo since? And John, I'll ask you, because I know you were covering things at this time when Atlanta won it.
Yeah.
In what, 92 was it?
Oh, it was 89. It was
89.
89. The announcement happened, and I'll break the fourth wall here. Because of where the announcement was at the time, I think it was in Lausanne, Switzerland, and so for them it was, like 1 o'clock or noon or something like that. And the party that was here in underground Atlanta, and you had everybody there, and I was dead asleep because I thought it was going to Athens, because
everyone did.
Yeah, and
everyone and their mother has the except me, obviously. I wish I would love to get it one day, to get the printed up AJC of It's Atlanta. I think everyone did. But my point being, have the Olympics carried that much like drama and excitement? I mean, I think the World Cup is not the same, but I think you're getting into a situation with the World Cup eventually where people are going to be like, I mean, we don't really want to spend the money to host it ourselves, because the return is not as much as everyone claims it is. This is the same thing you do with, when you start getting into like, well, such and such brings this much economic impact here, or it's, well, if we build the stadium, we'll generate this much. I mean, money's still going to be spent. You're a lot of times you're reallocating it with the World Cup. It's a little bit different. I'd have to go back and pull the studies that I had when I was in school. But yeah, like, it's a matter of, like, you start getting into like the economic profit of it. And I think you'll get more and more of this. We're going to grab a couple more countries and we're going to put together a group bid.
And you're seeing countries that are funding the higher end events, and most of them are tied to certain socioeconomic, the socioeconomic plans where it's deficit spending and we don't care. There's no repercussion if we spend a lot of money and then the event happens, and so you turn the event into a showcase of yourself and your way of thinking, and the rest of the world sits there and goes, yeah, basically, and you spend the metric crap ton of money. And these days, when you spend that kind of money, you've got to wonder about the outlay. And if you're doing it solo, then the outlay really isn't there. And I think that the defraying of costs and the sharing of ideas, I think that really it could work for 2030, and it really could work in South America. And I thought that was a really cool thing that was brought to the table yesterday as we were discussing everything going on around the world, and transfers, and everybody's still getting ready for the opening of the Premier League season coming up on Friday night. But there's a lot of stuff going on all around the world, and to have these four countries step up and sit there and say, yeah, we want to share in 2030. I thought that it was a really cool idea, and I hope that they get that opportunity to do that. So very cool idea. Now let's see if the financing works and make sure that everything happens to where that it's a solid bid. You have infrastructure that's in place that can actually, perform this as flawlessly as possible. And when you have four countries that want to do it, you've got to make sure that your travel plans are squared away, and that all of your travel is as safe as it possibly can be, and that all of your travel and your practice, all of the infrastructure, for me, that's going to be the biggest challenge in all of this if you're dealing with four countries. I know that when you look at what you're looking at with the U.S. and Mexico and Canada in 26, then that, I guess, can be something where you can look at it and go, okay, they did this, this, and this. Where can we carry what they did so we can be just as successful from a perspective of hosting a World Cup? And I thought that was really cool. Are you ready, sir, for the midweek whip around? Patent pending and
trademark coming. Let's do it.
Trademark coming. So here we go. All right. So we got a couple of matches going on in the midweek. We've got four of them. And it's a way for folks to kind of sit there and figure out, okay, we got to make up some matches and figure out what we can do here. And also, you got one of the games, you got a couple of games that you got friendlies happening in the midweek also. Just you got LA Galaxy going up against Chivas. That's at 8:30 tonight. You've also got another friendly at 11:15 tonight. It's LAFC and Club America, and I thought that was another interesting. We'll see what the juice boxes say on that after we go through the midweek whip around. But let's start with Charlotte and DC, since that is the earliest kick on your Wednesday. And you look at your juice boxes there, and it is Charlotte at a -133, which I find interesting. Your draw is a +288. DC United is a +342. That's once again the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. So they take about anywhere from 12 to 17 different juice box purveyors and throw them into a pile. 7:08 kick at Bank of America Stadium. Willie P. and Jess on the call on the radio side for WFNZ. DC United beat Charlotte 3-0 at home in the opening match of the season, in the first match in Charlotte's MLS history. DC's lost 7 of their last 12 away matches against expansion sides. However, with 4 wins and a draw dating back to 2010. Charlotte returns home after a pair of road losses, having won 7 of their first 10 home MLS games. Charlotte's the third expansion team in MLS history to win at least 7 of its first 10 home matches, after Chicago won 8 in 98, and some team that we've heard of called Atlanta United won 7 in 2017. DC defeated Orlando City, or Orlandont, as Greg Garza refers to them, 2-1, despite entering stoppage time trailing, winning on goals at 90+1 and 90+5, marked the 10th time in MLS history that a team entered stoppage time trailing but went on to win, with DC responsible for 3 of those. Also, 2000 versus Chicago and 2003 versus New England. Charlotte conceded 7 goals. And I know this is Jarrett, this is probably where you were going. Charlotte conceded 7 goals over its last 2 matches, both on the road. Charlotte has allowed just 7 total goals in 10 home matches this season. Only the Union, with 6, have let in fewer goals in home matches this year. What say you, Jarrett Smith?
Uh-huh. Well, see, here's the thing. DC, what they did to Orlando was objectively funny. I don't think it represents what DC will necessarily be in the long term going forward, because there is a lot of work to do at DC. Wayne Rooney is not a miracle worker.
No.
John, I think you could speak to, there are going to be some nuanced differences between what happened at DC and Derby County.
Yes.
They're not going to be the exact same thing, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Like, I think it would be unfair to say he has to do one or the other or he's a failure, but it's going to be different. It's going to be a different kind of challenge for Mr. Rooney.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's how I'm seeing it myself. They might get some new manager bump out of this. I don't necessarily think it'll be a long-term new manager bump, just because I think that roster's just still got work.
Yeah.
Now, give him, I will say this, that if you give him, I think, give him a couple windows and see what happens long-term. He'll get some results early on for sure. Don't know how I feel about going into Charlotte and doing it, because Charlotte didn't have to play over the weekend because Mother Nature said no against Columbus. But Charlotte has not been lighting the world on fire. Ever since 2 games ago against Miami, Charlotte gave up 2 goals in the second half against Miami and then got absolutely boat raced by Toronto. Yep. It was the first time that I feel like Charlotte has been boat raced like that. And I feel like it happens to every expansion team. Yeah. At some point, you're going to end up, losing a game where you're like, what the hell just happened?
What the blue happened here?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's not like oh my God, Charlotte's suddenly terrible. No, Charlotte's fine, especially for an expansion team. Better than I thought they'd be, with room to grow. But give me Charlotte to get this one across the line, but it won't be pretty.
Okay. I was going to say I don't have faith in either one right now. I was going to go draw it plus 288.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I have no faith in DC, regardless of where they're playing. But Charlotte, with their recent form, I don't know if they can translate it and bring it home. There was talk last week that they were chasing after Latif Blessing. We'll see what happens between now and the end of the deadline tomorrow. 7:30. It is Columbus Crew and CF Montreal. Hopefully, probably soon to be Impact. And your juice box is there. Crew at lower.com is an even money plus 100. Your draw is a plus 254. CF Montreal is a plus 260 in the composite. Obviously, the numbers are different at MLS soccer.com. 7:38 kick at lower.com. Fun facts. Including playoffs, the Crew have won 10 of their 14 home matches against CF Montreal, only drawing or losing 2 others. The Crew's .714 winning percentage at home against Montreal, second best at home against an opponent they've hosted 10 or more times. They are at .750 winning percentage against RSL, having won 9 of 12. Crew are unbeaten 9 straight matches, 4 wins and 5 draws, longest active streak in the league, following a scoreless draw against New England on July 23rd. Columbus is just 2 double-digit unbeaten runs in their MLS history, going 12 in a row without losing in 2017, 18 straight without a defeat in 2004. CF Montreal's won 5 of their last 8 away matches, only drawing 1 and losing 2, including the 2-1 victory at DC in their last road match on the 23rd of July. After going winless in their first 3 on the road this season, that was 2 losses and a draw. The 5 away wins are the most in a single regular season in the club's MLS history. Lucas Zelarayan has been involved in 7 of the Crew's last 8 MLS goals, 1 goal, 6 assists, including each of the last 4. Since he joined the Crew in 2020, the team has a record of 20 wins, 5 draws, and 4 losses in matches in which he, meaning Zelarayan, contributes to at least one goal. Oh, what say you, Jarrett Smith?
Crew in a weird one.
I say I didn't mean to stun you.
No, you're okay.
But yeah, Crew. But all right. So since you said a weird one, let me go into numbers here. Let me go to the totals and see if this can influence any ideas here. Over under plus 1.5 is at minus 352. 2.5 is a minus 113. This is when it changes. Plus 3.5 is at a plus 220. Plus 4.5 is a plus 495. So I'm looking at that 3.5 at a plus 220. That to me is that one seems pretty good for me. The over under of 3 is at a plus 157. I'll go 3.5 at plus 220 in that one. I think that Montreal, I don't know if I can trust them on the road fully. And with what we've seen from Columbus recently, Columbus at home, but you look at the defense for CF Montreal. Can they go ahead and turn it around? They've got CF Montreal at a plus 260. I think I've talked myself into Crew. I think I've talked myself into Crew in that weird one, and I like the total more than anything at anywhere north of plus 3.5. We do have MLS After Dark, and we have it twice. Portland hosting Nashville SC, 10:30. Jake Zivin on the call. Portland at a plus 120. Your draw's a plus 262. Nashville is a plus 206 in this one. And with what we've seen from Giovanni Savarese, you can never, every time we want to kick dirt on him, something happens and Portland just comes screaming back into any kind of a discussion. A 10:38 kick at Providence Park. Fun facts. Timbers came from a 2-0 down for the 2-2 draw in Nashville July 3rd. Second MLS meeting between the sides following a 1-0 home win for Portland in March of 2020. Nashville's recorded a win against every team that it has faced at least 3 times in MLS play, including the playoffs. Portland's 4-4 draw with Minnesota United on Saturday marked the first time in MLS history that both teams scored at least 4 goals and were shown at least 4 yellow cards. Nashville is winless in 3 straight matches, 2 of them draws, following the draw with Vancouver on Saturday, equaling its longest winless run of the season. Nashville has just 1 win in their last 6 matches, 3 draws and 2 losses. Sebastian Blanco scored Portland's opening goal in the draw with Minnesota after just 13 seconds. 4th fastest goal in MLS regular season history, 5th fastest including the playoffs, and the fastest since Justin Miram scored for the Crew after 9 seconds against Red Bulls in the 2015 playoffs. What say you, Jarrett Smith?
Speaking of teams I don't trust, Nashville. If I'm not mistaken, the history of teams that have backloaded home schedules is bang on great. Like, they do great. Nashville is probably going to be okay. Nashville has done practically nothing, though, to inspire confidence for me. Like, I'm perplexed about Nashville's existence.
Yeah.
I have been perplexed about them since Atlanta blew the U.S. Open Cup game and then proceeded to hold a late draw in Nashville on that really weird night.
Yes.
There is not a lot about Nashville that I trust. There's not a lot about Nashville that I believe in. That's just me.
It is.
Give me the draw.
Yeah.
Because Portland is weird and dumb enough and stubborn enough to make your life a special kind of hell.
Yeah. I'm looking at.
Nashville cannot stop giving up random backbreaking goals. And oh, buddy, like that's Portland's specialty. You walked into a place and said, "I don't like spaghetti," and you walked into a spaghetti warehouse. That's what Portland runs.
The old spaghetti factory. So I've got see, this one's driving me nuts. I don't trust Nashville, especially on the road. I don't trust them in a venue like Portland. And with what we've seen from Portland recently, I'll go Timbers in this one. I think it might have a bit of wacky to it, but if you believe in numerology, here's the last 5 from Portland: draw, win, draw, win, draw. Therefore, I have to pick a win in this one if they're going to continue that kind of form. Portland coming in with a record of 7-10-6, 1 point behind Nashville, who's at 32 points. Nashville's drawn their last two, but they have only won once in their last five. So I'm going to go with Portland. I'm pulling out what's left of my hair, trying to figure out which one I want to pick. And so that means that at 10:30, the other one, which I know that you will be the one focusing on, Inter Miami going from one end of the world to the other to take on your San Jose Earthquakes. Quakes at a -112. Your draw is a +284, and Inter Miami is a +276. Do I even need to go into fun facts on this one?
No.
That's what I figured.
I mean, I'm going to take the Quakes just because we're at this point of the season, and I have abandoned all reason for madness.
Yeah.
Give me the Quakes. Let's get dumb.
Yeah.
How dumb can we get?
Well, but I'm with you. I think that the Quakes win this one. It's a 10:38 kick at PayPal Park. First MLS meeting between the Quakes and Inter Miami. Second match in California for Miami, having lost 1-0 in their inaugural match in March of 2020. San Jose conceded in the 5th minute of stoppage to draw 2-2 with Real Salt Lake on Saturday, the 5th straight match in which the Earthquakes conceded multiple goals. They've conceded multiple goals in 17 of their 22 matches this season, the most of any in the league. Inter Miami got the equalizing goal. 7th minute of stoppage from Chris McVeigh for the 4-4 crazy draw against FC Cincinnati on Saturday. 8 combined goals made it the highest scoring match in Miami's MLS history, having never played more than a 6-goal game. Then Jeremy Ebobisse scored San Jose's second goal on Saturday, taking his season total to 12. Only Earthquakes player with more than 12 after 22 was Wando in 2012 with 17. Ariel Graziani had 12 after 22 in 2002. I am going to go with the Quakes as well. That's just what I think of that one. I'm agreeing with you as well when it comes to what we're looking at with that one. So let me get into those friendlies really quickly. And you see, let's see, how did they classify them here at Odds Portal? I think it's world and then club friendly. So looking at the club friendly. Ugh. Yeah, I know, exactly.
That's true. I mean, we got to talk about how, like, when you start looking at the odds on club friendlies, you have entered a level of degen that you've lost me.
Well, I know, but you know.
No. I mean, I know we're doing this for fun purposes, but like, if y'all are seriously looking at it, I can't help you anymore.
No, and there are brave souls that want to chase after these kinds of things in friendlies, and so going night side, looking at friendlies, and this is the Leagues Cup portion of the program where it's like the Leagues Cup, kind of like you're rolling up the rug on the Leagues Cup. LAFC and Club America at 11:15. LAFC is a -108. Club America is a +231. Your draw is a +250. And also going back to where are my club friendlies here? It's, you know, they're not even helping a man out when it comes to the friendlies that are attached to this stuff. So it looks like Leagues Cup one with LAFC and Club America is the only one that has any kind of a number attached to it at the moment. Got CONCACAF League tonight with teams in Guatemala and Panama that are going at it. Liga MX is going at it tonight. Canadian Premier is going at it tonight. You've got USL Championship with games in the midweek, but and Copa Sudamericana Liga Expansión. But the only one that's on the board is the LAFC Club America game in the Leagues Cup, as they're kind of rolling up the idea of that particular tournament. So mercifully, if you're a true degen, then that's the only one that they have on the board. So we'll look at that. Before we go, one other thing that I wanted to get into talking with you about with the twos, because we haven't had the chance to talk about the twos yet, with the 1-1 draw with Las Vegas last time out for Atlanta United 2 up at the Fraction. And first and foremost, partner, it was great to have you up in the S Suite to put up with me for 90 minutes and or closer to 2 hours when we thought that we might have a weather delay of biblical.
As we're sitting there watching the far stands disappear in the rain.
Yeah, but we ended up getting it in time and on schedule and all that kind of stuff. Some of your takeaways from another point taken from a playoff team in the West. From now that you've had a couple days to kind of think about things, What did you think about the point that Atlanta United 2 got against Las Vegas at home?
That was a good point that left something to be desired. And the reason I say that is because they created opportunities and they didn't bury that game when they should have, even though they kind of did bury that game when they should have, and the ref just decided that they didn't bury that game. The AR making a call that I'm still unsure how the hell. If you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it. Right after Atlanta scores their first goal, they get a really good opportunity. Darwin Mateus does an absolutely outstanding job of tightrope walking on the touch line and does that whole thing that I love to see guys do, where you can tell he's not panicking and doesn't feel like he has to get the ball off his foot, but the defender's freaking out thinking he's going to move, and the defender makes the first move. Darwin steps aside him, and he's looking at the keeper, like reach out and touch him, and he just puts his foot under it and just shovels it and just flicks it over the keeper's head to the back post. Was it Firmino on the back post? It might have been.
Yeah, it was, because Nick put up his hand,
yeah,
and said that it was a goal, and he was charging out of 6.
Firmino jumps and slam dunk heads it in. One of the players for Las Vegas clears it out, but he's a foot inside the goal mouth when he clears it away. They don't give Atlanta the goal. There's no VAR or goal line technology in USL, something I hope they're able to fix down the road. And then Vegas gets a goal going the other way with local product Cal Jennings. But it was the whole game was a lot of fun. Don't let me, talking about that, take away from the fact that the whole damn game was a lot of fun. If you follow, I don't know if you guys follow USL Tactics, but the USL show has a number of guys who cover the USL in different levels. John Morrissey is at USL Tactics is his Twitter handle. He does a great job of breaking down USL matches on the tactical level in a very very like they're by tweet, so it's very consumable. It's not overwhelming. He also keeps a Google Drive sheet where you can look at teams, how they're playing, their tendencies. It's a really cool thing, but he did a really good little breakdown of the Atlanta one in Las Vegas. And to his point, yeah, it was a fun game because both teams wanted to play. Like, look, Vegas is going to sit a little bit more. Like, there's going to be times where Vegas is going to like try and absorb you and hit you on the counter. And they tried to hit Atlanta on long balls. They love that long ball. But Nelson Orji and Noah Cobb are up for it. Those guys were more than up for it. And the goal you get is a weird bouncing ball that I give more credit to Cal Jennings than I do criticism to Noah Cobb. Like, that ball's bouncing. Jennings reaches his neck out and stretches out and just gets a touch of it on his forehead to push it out of Noah Cobb's reach. Because if he doesn't do that, Noah Cobb had it measured and he was just going to reach out and kind of karate kick it behind him and take away the threat. But Jennings does just enough. And then he's able to put it by Justin Garces, who, that's a whole nother conversation. We could do an entire podcast about Justin Garces. I've run out of things to say. Justin Garces is
otherworldly.
Well, here's the thing, man. Every time we have these conversations about young players, and this goes back to the days of Eric Lopez, like, can we have a conversation about a young player who's exciting without setting unrealistic expectations to them that if they don't meet them, they're automatically a failure? Because I feel like that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world of hyperboles. And if we set an expectation for a player and they don't meet it immediately, if they struggle in their first professional year, then all of a sudden, like, they're a failure and we don't give them time. And I know not everybody feels that way, but I see enough of it where it pisses me off, honestly. But all of that being said, Justin Garces looks like he could be that dude. And I say that very carefully, trying not to set unrealistic expectations for Justin, because he's a good kid, damn good goalkeeper.
8 saves in back-to-back matches. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yeah, Jack and I were talking about it after the game. Jack Collison, Atlanta United 2's manager, that 8 saves again. And he just shook his head. When I walked in to talk to players and coaches, Noah Cobb was already sitting there when Justin walked in. And he just looked at Justin. He was like, man, great game. He just laughed and told him great game because it was.
Well, and this goes back to the original conversation that we had when the show started today. You mentioned Nelson Orji and Noah Cobb, two guys whose futures might be on the hop because of the injury to George Campbell. And Monday through Friday, they're going to be under the watchful eye of Gonzalo Pineda and the Atlanta United coach and the Atlanta United coaching staff to see if they would be ready to be in a game day 18 down the stretch run for Atlanta United as they're chasing a playoff berth in the Eastern Conference. And you've seen the back line. You've seen this group for Atlanta United too. Not intimidated by what's going on. I mean, Noah Cobb, I assume he's got a learner's permit, perhaps a driver's license. He can't vote. Nelson Orji was brought into a situation from the Hungarian league, if I remember correctly, with Zelerzegi. And he's been put into the situations with Jack Collison there at the back. And he's had to kind of learn on the fly, where Noah has learned through the academy. Nelson Orji has learned on the fly and has assimilated himself into the system very, very well, very, very quickly. Yes, you can tell that one is 17 and one is, I think, 20 or 21. But they're young kids and they're learning and they're sponges right now. And there are those moments where you see a Noah Cobb who's in complete control at the back. You see an aggressive Nelson Orji who is working his way into to be a part of the offense, and he gets the header that gives Atlanta United the first goal on the board against Las Vegas off a set piece. And so you're seeing, in addition to the defense that we've seen from those two guys, you're seeing them integrating into the offense as well. And I think that these two guys, they're now their clock just sped up when it comes to possibilities with Gonzalo Pineda and Atlanta United.
I mean, because I guess here's my thing is I don't want to set I don't want to set unrealistic expectations for guys like Noah or guys like Nelson.
No.
And they're both insanely talented. Noah, I think, has just a comically high ceiling.
Yeah.
Because he is so composed and so smooth at such a young age. But I think his ceiling is absolutely going to be incredible. Aside from that, then you're looking at. Well, we've talked about Nelson Orji in the booth next to y'all when I'm not calling games. That the more chaotic and combative a game is, the better he seems to play. And they're gonna miss him next time out. He got a red card at the end of the Vegas game. He got a dog so red, and the more I went back and looked at it, it's the right call. He pulls down Cal Jennings, and he might have saved 3 points for Atlanta United, or a point for Atlanta United in the process.
Yeah.
Because at that point, Jennings is going to go through on goal with the third to last touch of the game.
And you'll have to keep an eye on Nelson Orji. Nelson Orji is going to be looking from the sidelines when it comes to what you're going to be looking at for Atlanta United too. And it's a week away, and then the Twos come back and they get to take on the Miami FC. Although, Jarrett, I'm still wondering if our friends in Columbus, Ohio, are going to be upset about what Ricardo Silva and his soccer team are doing down in Boca Raton, Florida, with their naming, considering that particular article, I believe, has been patented by our friends in Columbus, Ohio, at Ohio State University. So, at
some point they're going to get mad.
Some point, I'm waiting for whatever article is next that the folks in Columbus want to chase after to claim as their own. It's Blood Feud on Saturday, and I know we'll probably get into it a little bit on Friday, but it's Blood Feud on Saturday with our friends from Birmingham Legion hosting the Twos at Protective 8:00 on Saturday night, and they won't have Nelson Orji as a part of it.
No, and it should be a fun game. I'll be interested to see how Atlanta deals with that. Is it Efrain Morales who drops back? I thought he was really good as the 6 in this game, which is his natural position. Now that he's healthy, getting time, he's getting a chance to show what he can do. Tony Tiente stepped in for him. Both of those guys who have played on the back line with Noah Cobb. Do you go to one of them in this situation? It stinks not having a guy like Grant Howard that he went on to school, because this would be a good place for him.
Yep.
Um, I don't know what you do if you are Atlanta. I don't know how you set this up, but it should be an absolutely bonkers enjoyable game. The last time these two teams played in Atlanta, it was nuts. Birmingham was banged up in that game. They weren't feeling great. They were in the middle of a weird road trip. Everyone's got a little bit of time to catch their breath. This should be such a fun game.
Yeah, and we'll be keeping an eye on that one on Saturday night as well after Atlanta United and Seattle Sounders. I think that is a Walpassian type Wednesday. We've gone to a lot of different directions, but that's what Wednesdays are for. I think that's a show, sir.
I believe it is. In that case, I guess I will wish everyone a mucha plata.